Welcome to tying Michigan's best trout flies. It's getting very close to that time of year for the Hendrickson hatch again, so I thought we'd have just a little bit more discussion on that, to maybe a couple of points that you might be able to use while you're fishing, and then I'm going to incorporate another pattern that's really good at certain times of the hatch. So, regarding the hatch itself, I've heard a lot of times, and I've read that it requires 50-some degree, low 50-degree water temperature for the hatch to take place. And while that may be true at times, just keep this in mind. Once the Hendrickson hatch gets going fairly strong, cool water temperatures won't put it off. In fact, I've had really good Hendrickson fishing at water temperatures of 46 and 47 degrees. So if you're going fishing, the hatch has been on for a while and you get a cold day and the water cools off, don't stay home. They're very likely to hatch regardless of that lower water temperature. Once they get going strong, water temperature won't usually put them off. And I came across this pattern that I'm going to share with you today. It's especially good for one aspect of the hatch. I learned about it many years ago via a book by Swisher and Richards, and I think they coined the term Stillborn Dun, I think. At any rate, there were some patterns out then, and I had never fished that particular phase of the hatch, and I didn't like the looks of the pattern, so I went about and created one of my own that's proved to be very effective. The Stillborn is simply a fly that starts to hatch, the wings get trapped in the wing case and they don't make it and they die, and they become very easy prey for the trout. So I'm going to show you how I tie my very simple pattern, and I think you're going to have success with this. It's easy to tie and it's a breeze to fish. I'm using a size 12. Here in Michigan, our Hendricksons run size 12, and sometimes we use size 14s. And then I've got some brown thread. Actually, it's tobacco brown number 47 on Danville's chart. It's the best I've found for a number of hatches, including this one. So we're going to run the thread all the way back to the bend of the hook. Now, a Stillborn will have a trailing, the trailing shuck. Then it'll have its wings trapped in that case and making a little hump here, kind of like a small humpy. What I used for that, to simplify things, is simply a section of deer hair that makes the entire fly except for the body and the hackle. So we'll just take this small clump of deer hair, dark deer hair with well-defined tips. This makes a nice looking trailing shuck. I measured off like that. We're going to have this section from here to here act as the trailing shuck. So when we measure that along the shank, we'll take it back to the bend here, switch hands, and cinch this down right at the bend with several nice tight wraps. So now you've got this. There's your deer hair. It's going to act as the shuck sticking out back. Now we'll lift this section up, put a few wraps in front, and we're going to put the body on now. Just a little bit of a dubbed body. Like this. Take it up about just past the halfway point there. Then we're going to take this remaining deer hair and pull it down here. Trap it there with our thread. Now you'll see there's a little bulge there. That's what you want. That's to mimic the wings that are trapped in the shuck. They can't get out. We'll get rid of this excess here. And then we're going to put just a few wraps of hackle on that's going to complete the fly. And you can use whatever hackle you want. That's not really essential as long as it's not too light. I've got a little bit of a Cree here. Grizzly and brown is fine, dark dun, anything that you like for the front. Just a few wraps up front here. And we'll tie it off. And a whip finish. And that's going to complete our fly. Now, just a couple of thoughts on fishing this. Now, you may look at the end of it where the deer hair is flared out here. You may want to trim some of that off. It's probably not essential, but you can if you want, of course. Fishing the fly, I would recommend that you trim at least a V in the hackle so it floats flush on the water. And just another thought about when to fish this fly. Stillborns, I found, are most effective during heavy hatches, and it only stands to reason because when you think about it, the greater the number of bugs are coming off, the greater number aren't going to make it. They're going to end up being stillborn. And here's something to keep in mind. Fish instinctively will take the food that's easiest to get. This fly, because it's so easy to capture, is especially good when you've got a heavy hatch with large trout feeding that won't take anything else. If that happens to you, carry some of these, make sure it's trimmed on the bottom, drift it over that big guy, and I'm sure you're going to be very pleased with the results. So that's my Stillborn Dun. Thanks for watching. I hope you got some good tips.